What we're going to focus on tonight is leveraging AI for marketers. And pretty much in any part of the business, where you're talking about marketing, business development, sales, clients, services, people operations, like the list goes on, accounting and finance, you can use AI everywhere these days. But today we're going to specifically hone in on marketing. And we have three amazing marketers here, information scientists, trainers. Like, we have an amazing cast who we're going to really riff on a lot of things around AI and marketing and anything else we can get into. We're going to go for about 45 minutes, and then we're going to leave 15 minutes till the end. If you have a burning question, you think it's relevant, we'll keep this interactive since we're pretty close tonight. But all right, so Keisha, first question, we're going to go down the line. Introduce yourself. Where do you work, and how do you use AI today?
Hello. So Keisha Clark English. I am the Director of Project Management. I am also the President of the American Marketing Association, Baltimore chapter, for the last 2 years. The work that I do today really centers around internal communications and change management, right? So the work that I do really is about changing hearts and minds as we deploy new technologies on our enterprise. How we use AI is in a couple of different ways. On our technical platform, we have a chatbot. Anybody could come to the site. Alan probably knows. I work with Alan at Exelon. Anybody can come to the site. It's called the management model, and enter their top question of what they're looking for. And since we implemented it last August, that chatbot gets smarter and smarter and smarter. And it's going to continue to deliver results for what you need at your fingertips, so that you're not spending a lot of time looking through documents in a way that is frustrating for people. So they think that it's not working because it doesn't give me the results that I'm looking for. It gives you the results that you're looking for at your fingertips. And that's just one example of how we're using AI in the work that I do internally.
Excellent. Brandy, how are you using AI? And tell us about yourself.
Sure. So, can you guys hear me? Yes, you can hear me. So, I'm Brandy Spence. I'm Director of Marketing here at Mindgrub. And what I do, obviously, is to really connect with our prospects and our clients and bridge Mindgrub solutions to their pain points. And so, obviously, content and messaging is so important, making sure that we're driving awareness around Mindgrub and also being able to capture that audience when they're ready to buy. So, we have a really rather smallish team at Mindgrub, and AI has been a very critical, I call it, teammate to us in many different ways. Everything from content ideation, creation, from research. We used it to, and we'll get into it a little bit, vibe code, do some technical things that as a marketer you might not think to do, but it gives me a prototype to then take to the real coders and say, this is what I'm thinking. So I'm excited to talk to you guys a little bit more about that today. That's just a few of the many ways as well that we're using it.
Awesome. Sashi, who are you and how do you use AI?
Hi everyone, thanks for being here. My name is Shashi Belamkonda. I work for the Infotech Research Group as the Principal Research Director. This is like an analyst firm. If you've heard of Gartner or Forrester, we are very similar but very focused on C-level technology executives, but my practice talks to a lot of CMOs. I've been a serial CMO for the last 10 years, and I have met Brian sitting here for a long time. We are in the same circles. I started with AI probably about 7 years ago when people hadn't heard of ChatGPT and it was known as machine learning. I think at that time, the number one problem we tried to solve was how do we analyze all the customer data and identify people coming into the funnel as closely matching our customers. But fast forward 7 years later, anybody in the world with a browser can actually use AI. There are two aspects of it. Personally, I use it a lot to create some tools. I was very bad at Excel, and I didn't have to send my work to somebody else to create a very complicated Excel spreadsheet. I could do that using AI. Lots of summarization, sometimes asking questions about calls that are there. Using it for unstructured data, I find it very useful, and trying to get responses as quickly as possible because summarization is a good one. That's how I use it. That's it.
All right, excellent. So I have, giving like your backgrounds, I have a question for each of you. Um, Starting with Brandy, um, you had mentioned that you're using AI for marketing, and a lot of times it's like, oh, I can use ChatGPT to generate content for me. Well, another aspect of ChatGPT, which I love to see um, a number of non-engineers use, is the fact that you can create custom GPTs. So tell us about the GPT you created and what's their name. So you know, like all like GPTs are basically an agent that does work for you, and Brandy herself created an agent that does work for us. And I said, well, we need to onboard them like an employee, right, and give them a name. Now, granted, they don't just get to do work on their own. It's all about human in the loop. But what does your agent do for you?
So I do have. Hear me? Okay. So I do have a couple, but so I think let me just preface by saying, like I talked about content, right? It's so important as a marketer for us to create content that really resonates, that really cuts through the noise. And one of the problems, believe it or not, with AI is that it's made anyone capable of being an okay writer. And so developing content can be a challenge, and making sure that your messaging doesn't sound like everybody else as a marketer, those in the room know, can be a very big challenge. So I started, before I got into the GPTs, with a prompt library, and we started collating a number of prompts that helped with things like not just making sure it didn't sound like AI, removing M dashes, removing funky sentence structures that AI likes to throw in there, but also taking content, long form content, and repurposing it for video scripts, for social, etc., rewriting content, editing content. And as I found, I kept having to put these prompts in over and over and filling in the variables over and over. What a GPT is wonderful for is when you have that background information, you can so easily go into ChatGPT. In this case, I tweaked my prompts. I'm going to give kudos to Kevin over there because he helped me with one of these, because my prompt was, 13,000 words long? It was long. It was long. And what did we do? He taught me I could create a GPT and then create another GPT and embed a GPT within a GPT. Now, Todd, you asked me the name, and I got to tell you, I didn't do anything special. I think it's like expert rewriter or something like that. But it allows me then to put in content, and it takes our tone and our voice and our messaging, and it takes a lot of other things into account, and it points out to me what it would suggest, and then it rewrites for me. And it's a godsend. It's my go-to whenever I need to do long form content, especially. So,
Yeah, so
yeah.
we'll call it Jesus.
Jesus.
No, I mean, there's a lot of things that you used to do manually, like writing the content in the first place. And everybody knows you can go to ChatGPT and you can write a lot of content. You actually mentioned an important thing. Like, are there any English teachers in the room or English majors in the room? Like, we used to use semicolons or colons or commas or like something to differentiate content. AI uses the M dash, the long dash, and it's a dead giveaway.
Yeah.
And what I haven't found is that, now maybe you can do it with a long prompt and a GPT, but every time I'm like, and remember, there's two prompts. First, ask me any questions you have before you give me the answer. Just add that prompt to your prompt. Ask me any questions. The second thing is don't use long dashes. But it doesn't have good memory for it. It keeps coming back. I can't stand it.
I've done that, and it still does it.
It's still, no matter what, it keeps coming back with the long dashes. So I don't know how it trained on that one. But anyway, so there's a lot of things that we used to do long form. I remember we had a gaming company. We still have a gaming company, but we make games for clients now. We put out our own titles at Mindgrub. We put out 7 or 8 mobile games. And then I learned that Rovio, Angry Birds, it was their 50-second game. And they lost their shirts up until they put out Angry Birds. But anyway, Keisha, you remember spending a lot of time in the sound studio working with talent to make voiceovers. What are you doing today with AI?
Hello. Yeah, I know. It cuts out for one. Hello.
Hello. There we are. So in terms of what I'm doing with AI relative to voiceovers, Back up. So prior to the role that I'm in now, the work that I was doing prior to that was in virtual reality training. And virtual reality training, for those that aren't as familiar, in the utility space, you tend to build scenarios that are real world scenarios and put them behind the goggles. And what that does for trainees, it helps them to build memory muscle for doing the task in the field in a safe environment so they are not exposed to the hazards of outside, the weather, the climate, as well as electrical or fault in the ground. So you actually have them doing the task in the goggles so that then when they're on the field, that they remember that task through repetition. Through that, we were able to start to do tutorial videos so that they could get a precursor of what the experience would look like prior to putting the goggles on. Because a lot of people are fearful once they put the goggles on that their sight is blocked. Through that experience, we were recording a lot of video tutorials, creating them in our studio. We have a studio space in the office. And something would change with the scenery or the task that was being completed, so we'd have to call the Towson studio to say, okay, we know we recorded this 60-second clip tutorial that people were using prior to VR, but we need to change this one line, and we had to get the studio time and record it and the whole thing. That was happening too many times in our projects. So corporately, we decided we were going to make an investment in a company called Well Said Labs. Well Said Labs is a AI-powered voiceover tool that is so much cheaper than going through raw talent. And like I told you, I feel bad that we're kind of putting voice talent out of business, but to be able to access thousands of voices with different cadences, with tones that we can pre-script, and we've been using it for the last 2 years. So now we've expanded not just to do tutorial videos, but we've made mini commercials that we show to our employees. We can pick the voice talent, male, female, happy, sad. We just put the script into it and we get a work product in less than, a minute. It's probably 30 seconds. And for portions of it that may sound a little robotic, we can tweak that section of it to make sure that the voice is as natural as possible. And I am so shocked within the last 2 years how much the licensing is used across the company, not just at Exelon, not just at BGE, but across all of the opcos. And content building for voice has become exponential. I know you probably, yeah. I mean, you can probably speak to how seamless it is and how good the voices have become over time. Yeah.
Yeah, and actually, I'd be curious. Like, you were working with the Vision Pro or not the Vision Pro, the Oculus
Yes.
Quest 2 for
Yes.
the training, which
Yep.
is fully immersive.
Yep.
But if you thought about the Vision Pro, then you can actually see with, instead of virtual reality, augmented reality. But speaking about voice, Google Air.ai sells the Vision Pro. It's an amazing video. It's fully dynamic AI, whereas taking a human, putting him in a sound studio and exporting like a soundtrack, obviously AI can do that now, but Air.ai is an example of where it can get on a phone with somebody and actually sell them on the Vision Pro. And the natural language processing in there is outrageous. So anyway, so content creation. Obviously, we know AI is amazing for content creation. But what it also does is analytics really well. I was actually talking to a company today that they call them first-year yearbooks for little babies. And super cute, but I'm like, well, who's your target demographic? And they're like, the grandparents or the parents, right? And I'm like, oh man, your marketing can be entirely automated. He's like, what do you mean? And you can pull credit card data from maternity stores. You can pull data from people info to find out that same name, where do they live and who did they live with, to find the grandparents. Then you can go to like Apollo or Zoom Info and you can pull the grandparents' information. And then you know exactly if they're hitting the maternity store, you have no more than 9 months to start nurturing that opportunity,
Wow.
right?
Wow.
Automate their entire marketing.
Wow.
But data is huge. So Sashi, I know a little bit different take, not just marketers creating content, but tell us about not just data analytics, but really in marketing, it's all about that funnel, right? Like bringing in the leads. How do you use data to really focus on the end of the funnel activities?
Great question. And by the way, great examples from both of you. I was actually talking to Kevin before this, and he mentioned something that I thought I should repeat, like fill the jar with big stones first, and then the smaller ones and sand. So taking that into account, if you look at if your company is in, if revenue is a big company goal, then start at the bottom of the funnel where even a 0.5% or 1% change in conversion rate means like anything from $250,000 to $1 million, depending on how much you're selling the product for. For that, you need to see like AI is very good at analysis, it's very good at prediction, and then based on these two factors, it can actually generate. So anything that the team is doing today that takes a long time, not very personalized, is where you can focus on. And some of the models that we have helped implement also can predict if a customer is going to leave you, which means you're retaining the revenue by taking proactive action, or who are the high intent visitors. And I want to actually continue on a question that I get very often, especially in the last 1 month or so, is most marketers are saying our organic traffic is reducing. It's also reducing because people are not going to Google searching and going and visiting the websites to do their research. They're just going to the LLM of their choice, putting a prompt with hopefully not 13,000 words, but but they are asking very specific questions, and the LLMs are giving them the answers from all of your websites without them going to your website. It's not bad news unless you're a newspaper company, which depends on people, right? The good news about it is we're also hearing that people who now land on your website have high intent. So, which means the content that you create should be more towards people who already know about your business. They have done their research. Now they just want to get in touch with you and convert, right? And you can use AI to solve this problem. And one of the methods is to implement something called a structured data. So, one homework for all of you today is go into a LLM of your choice, Cloud, ChatGPT, Gemini, and just say like, how's my structured data for my website? What should I be changing? I can bet, and please connect with me on LinkedIn and tell me if what I said is true or not. You will get a fairly good answer about what you should be improving. What that means is like most of these LLMs, unlike search engines, understand data. So you've got to say, this is a movie website, this is an actor. Just by reading the image, it's not going to make that context. If I can take 1 more minute, sorry for a long-winded
Sure, yeah.
answer.
No.
When ChatGPT first started, if you went in and said, who's Shashi Belamkonda, it would understand the context. Shashi is the first name, Belamkonda is the last name. And it would do a mishmash of every Shashi in the world and every Belamkonda in the world, and would come back and tell me that I work for Google, I used to work as an AI engineer in Meta, and I'm an actor in India. It's not a problem. It's just that I didn't provide it enough context. And now if you go and search for the same thing with context, it understands it much better. So if all of you don't have personal uh, profiles in some of the places that AI can, which is LinkedIn and things like that, I would highly ask you to do that because it's a trust signal. If they want to know who you are as a good marketer, the LLM should know where you went to school, which companies you worked for, so all of that. So two things today. Go to an LLM and see if your website has good structured data. You can also go to schema validator and do that. Number two is see what the bio comes out from your LLMs. If it's not accurate, then you have to do some work.
So we obviously, as marketers, we spend a lot of time on search engine optimization. And I don't know that anyone has figured out exactly what to call it, but I hear GEO, generative engine optimization. Um, and you're absolutely right. There's only 4 Todd Marxes of any significance in the world. There's a politician in Florida, is Christopher Todd Marx, so not a real Todd Marx. 2 of them are in California. There's myself, obviously, here in Maryland. There's 2. There's a realtor, and then there's an AV production guy. I'm the only one with a Wikipedia article.
Nice.
So if you search for Todd Marks, I'm it. As far as, LLMs are concerned, right? I'm it because I have the Wikipedia article. So to your point.
Wait, give me a second. I'm getting the guy in Florida getting his page done right now.
No, don't do that. No. He's Christopher Todd Marks. He doesn't even count. He's just borrowing the name. But seriously, though, you have to look at it's that brand authority. And now you might not be able to get a Wikipedia article by yourself, although you probably can, believe it or not. What you have to look at is how you generate content on the website. So it's that Q&A, right? Generative content is all about the Q&A. So your website, on every page, you should have just a section that's curious about mobile apps? We can answer that for you. And when the LLMs see that, they're like, oh, if you're curious about mobile apps, well, Mindgrub says they have the answer for you, right? So how you structure that content is really important. All right, so we've talked about marketers and analytics and how do we use AI, but probably where you're at in your company is that you might be an evangelist and you may be using AI. And I was an evangelist, and I got in front of my entire company in an all hands meeting. And so Mindgrub, we make and market software, and we have a process, right? I'll try not to bore you, but we do discovery, then we make wireframes, then we do visual design, then we develop front, middle, back, we test, and we deploy, right? A lot of steps. And Claude 3.7 will do wireframing and visual design for you and export it to Figma, which is a tool that the engineers can use. And now there's a lot of tools like Winveil or Windsurf, and Lovable that you can do prompt to product. Lovable, you can make a prompt and go to an app. Windsurf, you can do prompt, you can go to a website, right? Amazing tools. And we can give you the transcript for this whole thing too, so you don't have to take all the notes. But amazing tools out there. So I got in front of the entire company and I said, look at Claude 3.7, and I gave a prompt. And in about 10 minutes, I was able to generate the wireframes that we otherwise took about a week to make. And I'm like, isn't this exciting? Well, HR, their phone blew up off the hook, and they said he's coming for all of our jobs, and he's going to get rid of us, right? Which is not my intention, because there needs to be human in the loop. You'll hear about that. It's about cobotics. It's about working with AI, right, is the best output, right? And I was trying to show them this great tool that could just make their jobs more efficient. I was not speaking about it, replacing them or even displacing them. Anyway, so change management is a thing. So for any of the panelists out there, it's awesome that you're an evangelist, but how do you do change management to create other evangelists? Because that's a really hard thing right now. Certainly from a CEO, if I say anything, then I'm taking people's jobs. But how do you say things that allows them to really embrace AI and not be scared of it?
I mean, yeah, that's a great question, Todd. For me, I've been as you mentioned, an AI evangelist for a long time. My experience with AI goes well beyond Gen AI, from my anti-counterfeiting days with computer vision, semantic analysis, et cetera. So it's something I was already very prone to. Seeing the writing on the wall where AI is taking, it's basically a seismic shift, right? For everyone. And I'm a true believer that it's those that get it, those that are experimenting with it now, that are going to have a leg up. So in the beginning of the year, I took my team and we scheduled a call together, and I had attended a couple of webinars, had gotten some really great information, and I said, this is what we're going to do. And I'm going to take you guys and we're going to do some frequent AI calls to go through this data that I'm going through, and we're going to create some projects that we're going to tackle together over the course of the year. And so we did some brainstorming. Hey, where can we get the most bang for our buck with using AI? We thought, okay, operationalizing our social media playbooks might be one. So we created a whole list. I know Jen somewhere over there, that was a fun, yeah. It is a challenge, right? Because these things, you've got to be consistent. The day-to-day gets in the way. Some people are resistant to it. We created, for example, the prompt library, as I mentioned, shared it and gave it access to my team. Some are more adaptive to using that than others. at the end of the day, I hate to be very like blunt, but you can lead the horse to water. You can't make them drink. Those that drink are
You
going to
can't give
have
them a decent severance package, though.
the writing is in the wall. I mean, AI is going to take it's going to just change our day-to-days, and we have to embrace it, and we have to learn how to work with it, and we have to learn how to be responsible with it too. I mean, there are pros and cons to AI. So, you know, that's all you can educate. I know we did an AI
Yeah.
boot camp at Mindgrub. We had a lot of our cross collab departments, team members, be a part of it. And I think that was very big for many of us in the room were a part of that. And it was very educational. And I think that's a big step is providing the education, providing the tools, providing the policies, which we have in place as well, the governance. It's all part of that.
No, you're absolutely right. I think at Mindgrub, instead of the CEO telling everybody they should use AI, we create an ambassador program. And so peers taught peers, and it's very well received if it's peer to peer. If it's top down, not so well received. If it's bottom up, that would be amazing. Just you got to embrace it. Somebody actually said there, right now we have 3 classes, right? Upper, middle, and lower. Somebody said in the future there's only 2: those that use AI and those that don't. That's why I said give them a severance policy because, and we're going to get to that question in a minute, but we have a lot of people that are still gun shy about using AI, and again, it's those that use it and those that don't moving forward. So you got to think about which side you want to be on. Keisha, BG&E, Exelon, big organization. Like, how are you doing change management there?
So a couple of things. The utility and corporate offices, we pilot everything. We pilot everything. So there's a forum called the Innovation Forum that anybody in the company can come up with an idea and they can pitch that idea to their innovation forum, and that idea can get funding behind it, and then it eventually will get advocacy behind it, and then it will also become something that we use every day. So one of those ideas or examples was ChatGPT. Of course, a lot of people were using it. We wanted to use it in a way that is compatible with our Microsoft. We invest a lot of money in Microsoft Power Apps. So they launched a pilot for Microsoft Copilot. And originally people were just using it to take notes because gone are the days of the past that I used to sit with my notebook and write down all my notes and then spend 30, 40 minutes typing up what was discussed, the action items, and then sending them out for whatever projects, campaigns, initiative that I was working on. So they introduced the idea of Copilot last year, and I was like the first one to raise my hand. Like, I want to be part of that pilot because I often lead with innovation. I love
that's Microsoft Copilot.
Microsoft Copilot. I often lead with innovation. I'm a big note taker. I have a sharp memory. So I'm always remembering those action items. So I started playing with it and realized that it can do just more than notes. Like, I can actually take content that I was presenting to an SVP or a VP and, upload my PowerPoint slide or my campaign idea and say, hey, I want this to resonate, or I want it to be direct, or I want to make sure that I talk about the cultural shifts that's going to happen as a result of that. Is it included or not? And it will revise that content to say, here's some suggestions of things that you may have considered. And by the way, do you want me to create a new PowerPoint slide for you? I'm like, oh, heck yeah. So I would have it recreate a new PowerPoint slide, and I wouldn't take it all because not all of it makes sense for our business, but it does help me generate ideas so that I'm not starting from a blank piece of paper. The other thing is, I am not a fan of using ChatGPT for creating content from scratch. I know you just talked about that earlier, but I am a key component of taking it, knowing that I need to target to a specific audience and say, here's this thing that I created that was only specific to an individual contributor audience. So someone that is a direct report to me or a peer, but I need to make sure that it resonates with an executive committee member. Like, what is the language that I need to use so that I am clear on what I need them to do, what I need them to be aware of, and what action items I need them to take, and outcomes. So I am often using it to manage up. So that I'm speaking strategically, or at least presenting my ideas in a strategic lens that they understand the path and the journey that I'm trying to take them on.
All right, so Sashi, either you can answer what you're doing in change management and follow it, or you can go straight to give us a killer tool. So change management and then give us a killer tool, or go straight to the killer tool.
I think I want to address the change management
Okay,
a little,
start there.
because the number one question, I don't know how many in the room have heard this, is the CEO comes to his leadership team, I want to implement AI. And the leadership team looks around and says, like, for what? And say, you guys figure it out, right? There's a lot of fear about AI taking over jobs, and it doesn't have to. I mean, there are no elevator operators anymore. I was just reading that when the cars were introduced in the US, there used to be a person whose job was to hold a flag and tell everybody to move out of the way. So as technology changes, people will have to upskill, right? So the strategy that I would suggest for change management, number one, is AI policy. How many of you in your companies have an AI policy? Right? So next time we meet, everybody should raise your hands and say AI policy. Number two is AI training. And this AI training is not, I mean, most people make a mistake about here's how you can use it for your work. But this AI training should be very specific to here are all the skills you can learn personally about using AI. The most important thing when doing that is, number one, you get buy-in from the entire company. Plus, they are now able to distinguish between what they can use for personal use and what is work. Because very often, like as much as CIOs will like to shut down things, people will always go home and say, like, I still have this spreadsheet. Let me try it with Chat GPT and see what it says. And I probably violated 10 to 15 compliance rules, right? So they need to understand what's work and what's personal. Now, once they understand how they can use it for personal, how do I use an agent to plan a trip to Europe, 7 days, here's how much I want to spend. They're really good at these things. Now, the second thing is you have to have a sandbox, which I think, like Keisha said, whatever technology your company is using, there is a way for your company to turn on. I don't know what you use here. Do you use Microsoft Copilot here?
Or Google.
Google? Okay.
Yes, all of the above.
Okay,
Yeah, our
so-
Microsoft team uses Microsoft Copilot.
Okay. So you can actually get access to a guardrail, a LLM with guardrails, so you can actually do some work on it. So you've got some training, you know what AI can do, and then you start working within your company. Now, the third thing, which I think Todd mentioned they've already done, is to have an AI council, cross-functional, bring the ideas to the table, and just like Keisha said, what are the ideas that you'd like the company to implement with AI? And they should form 3 buckets. Number one is, can you show an ROI with revenue? Number two, is it going to increase customer satisfaction? I mean, I'm a customer of Exelon. Who here likes to wait on the phone for hours together with any customer success?
Well, wait. Are you talking about talking on the phone, or are you talking about the mobile app?
No, talking on the phone,
Oh, okay.
right?
Because the mobile app, I can say, is really fast.
No, I mean, so what Exelon did today is I don't have to worry about power outage or anything. The minute I just start it, it says, hey, in your area, there are 400 houses that don't have power. It tells you like within 1.5 hours, the power is going to be restored. These are like customer happiness use cases. And the third use case is employee happiness. And employee happiness is find out what is the task that they really hate. And chances are an AI can do that better. especially if you're asking a business analyst to go and download 30 spreadsheets and give you some data in a nice report. I'm sure AI can do a better job there.
Absolutely. Okay, so three things. First, a comment. When I asked about Microsoft Copilot, like we talked about cobotics, like working with AI. There's Microsoft Copilot. There's Get, which is where you store your code. There's Get Copilot. We also use LinkedIn Copilot, which automates your LinkedIn outreach. So, Copilot's all over the place. And then two questions. So, first, a little speed question, like, and I hate to ask this question, but first of all, do you all have ChatGPT 4 access to the paid version of Chat? Okay. Now the question is, who pays for it? Are you paying for it, Brandy, or are we paying for it?
I believe you guys are about to pay for it, and I also pay
Good
for it.
answer. We're about to pay for it. I actually talked to an education institute, and they're like, we love ChatGPT 4, but to buy licenses for every single person in the organization is really cost prohibitive. I never thought about that because we all went off and bought our own access to whether it's Claude or ChatGPT or whatever it is. We bought access because it's such a powerful tool, but at some point, companies will need to budget for it. So thank you for answering honestly. I hope that we are providing ChatGPT 4 for everyone who's going to use it effectively.
Yeah, definitely. Everybody on the ambassadorship and the boot camp apparently is getting
Absolutely. I
that.
think by doing the ambassadorship program, they should automatically get access to tools. I would hope so. Okay, so then the last question is give us another tool that just blows your mind. And maybe Brandy, you can just extend this one a little bit. So if you know, Maryland is a high tax state. We just added a tire tax. You're paying $5 more every tire you buy. We have a tech tax. Any tech you consume, it's 3%. We have an FMLA tax. So all your employees, you have to pay an extra 1% for tech tax. So, taxes are absolutely through the roof. And so I'm curious to look at other states as far as taxes. I'm an empty nester this fall. I can go anywhere I want to. Maybe there's a more tax favorable state. So I was asking my accounting department, is there a more tax favorable state? So now our head of accounting went through our ambassador program, and he actually sent me a Notebook LM podcast. If you've played with Notebook LM, it's brilliant. You can upload whatever content. You can pick the narrators, and it'll create you a podcast, a highly entertaining podcast. And in this case, it was about tax favorable states. So anyway, Brandy blew my mind today because that's all I thought Notebook LM did. Can you give us just a rundown of what else it does?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been using Notebook LM for a long time, and I love the podcast feature. It's great, and I think they've even upgraded now so that you can even ask the host questions and they'll answer them. So it's very cool. One of the things I like using it for, well, multiple uses, but I'll give you a use case, an exact use case is we're looking at really tightening up our value proposition and our messaging. And I've been interviewing several of our clients for some time now. Very short, 15, 20-minute interviews. Otter AI does the transcript for me. Wonderful. I take every single one of those transcripts and I've got a project within Notebook LM where it lives. And I'm able to then really ask it questions. Okay, so out of all these interviews, what was the biggest differentiator that our clients mentioned about Mindgrub? Boom, 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 I've got it. Okay, so what is the biggest area of improvement that we heard? Boom, 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 I've got it. I can do mind mapping in there and it'll explain to me things like it'll organize it and here are the top value props and here's this and here's that. It's amazing. It's visual, it's auditory, it's a back and forth dialogue. It's a great tool for, I can imagine, students doing learning. It's a great tool if you've got a big piece of content that you want to digest. And the best part about it for me is that I can share it because it's within our Google paid services. So I've shared this with our entire leadership team. I'm about to roll it out to our client services and our sales team because they can learn from that data as well. And like that, I have many other projects. I use it for website content with our SME interviews so that we can develop content so that I don't have to waste their times. We just have interviews. I take that data, I ask it, I can then digest and create content. So it's a great tool.
So it's the Cliff's Notes killer.
Yeah.
Keisha, Sashi, like, what tools just blow your mind?
For us, a lot of the work that we're doing internally leverages a lot of the Microsoft Power apps. The tool that we use the most is Microsoft Power Automate. So with Power Automate, you don't need to be a programmer. I mean, I'm sure you are, but I can pick a specific thing that I need done and say, okay, if it's emailing a group of individuals to communicate X, it can pre-build those templates where I don't have to learn how to be an email marketer or email programmer, but using Microsoft Power Automate to say, I need to do XYZ and I need this person to respond in 15 days. And if they don't, here's this X then scenario that I need you to do. And it builds the scenario for me. I plug it into my Outlook and Teams as well as SharePoint, and it will run that data point, and I never have to reach out to the person, and it'll give me a report. The other thing that blows my mind, if you are ever on Teams call, I'm on Teams calls all the time, there's this coach that you can turn on that if I'm talking too fast, if I'm not using positive language, if speaker coach is what it's called. If I'm not using positive language, if I'm not pausing enough to ask questions, it'll give me that feedback as I'm on the call. And because I'm a fast talker, it'll tell me to slow down. And I'm like, all of a sudden, I'm like, and then, okay, and and then it'll give me a report at the end to say, you use positive language 80% of the times, you use negative language 20% of the times, you stopped to ask questions, you made sure your pace was good. And I use that for my own personal development as I'm delivering messages to end users and employees that I need them to move through a change. It helps me to keep myself accountable. So those are the two. Power Automate to do any sort of outreach that you don't have to do follow-up emails for. You don't have to remember because you can set it and forget it with it doing those tasks for you. And Speaker Coach to make sure that I am delivering messages in ways that resonate and that I'm positively impacting the way that people view me and getting on board with a message that I'm trying to deliver.
I just learned something. I mean, we've done robotic process automation, right? Whether it's Power Automate or UiPath. Yeah. And it used to you'd have to click on the screen and say, take this data, open up the other app, click on the screen, paste it over here. But as soon as the software is updated, it's invalid, right? So that's fascinating that it can actually automate tasks that aren't based on the screen. So I'm not a Microsoft Power user. Thank you. I just learned something. Sashi, what tools blow your mind?
No, I think I like Power Automate and the speaking coach. It always tells me that I repeat myself 13 times on every call. I'm always saying,
I
great.
might use negative tones in meetings. I don't want that tool. Yeah.
That's true.
So that helps me to get rid of my own.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I'll tell you two tools. One for fun. This is something from Amazon that not many
Did you just
people
say
have.
two truths?
Two tools.
Two truths and one lie. Okay.
Yes. It's called partyrock.aws. So I think these big companies started having their marketing departments were wondering hey, ChatGPT is stealing our thunder, even though I think, in my opinion, Google has by far the most advanced AI. Claude will be number 2. ChatGPT has advanced, but it's got so much into one particular LLM, so it's a lot. But partyrock.aws, I created something called Shashism. You can just say what kind of app you want to create, and probably in a couple of minutes you'll have an app. The app that I created, you just put in one word, it'll give you a haiku. It'll also give you a good quote based on that particular word, and then it'll create an image for you. So you could try. The imagination is endless. I'm probably sure Amazon is going to shut it down in a couple of
Wait,
years.
did you say this was Sashi.ai? What's the name of the
It's
tool?
Shashiism, but it's on partyrock.aws.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Right?
Okay,
Yeah.
Party org.
But I think I also use Otter. The Otter transcription chatbot is really very good if you are using it. But the tool that I really like is called goldcast.io. When you create a video, you want to find the right moments and then create short bits. It takes a very long time for any marketer. I think the free version of Goldcast will allow you to upload a video and then give you short bits that you can use for your social promotions or otherwise. It's also a event platform. I mean, there are several others like that, but this is like almost like AI first. And I mean, we could go on about tools, but
Tools all day long. Well, so let's talk about something that's really important to marketers, and that's copywriting. I was talking to Wendy earlier today, and her company does branding. We do some branding, and we have an AI works team now. And our traditional branding department, tens of thousands of dollars, tons and tons of hours. But for the right client, if they come through we call them tier 3 clients, smaller budgets, shorter time frame, less demands. I'm happy to do your branding. And I will use LLMs for ideation, but what I actually found is I can sketch things out in Claude, upload a sketch, and it'll change my sketch into a design and then output it as an SVG because I'm not an illustrator. I can't do all the curves and everything, but I can sketch on paper. I just can't necessarily go into Illustrator or Fireworks or whatever and draw the design. So I found that I can take my ideas but still use the AI to generate the final output, which gets me around any copyright issues, particularly when it comes to branding. If you want to, file for, registration or trademarks around that. So how have you found yourself butting up against or avoiding copyright issues so that you can still kind of retain that marketing IP? What have you done there?
I can go.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Jump in.
I recently started hosting a show. I took over from another host. It's called Talking Headless. It's mostly about analyst relations and analysts. So two things happen there. Number one is they ask me what kind of music do you want, and you can choose whatever you want. So I use Music LLM, which means that there's no copyright. It's all AI generated, which also means that if anybody else wants to steal my music, they can. So check it out, Talking Headless. But the second thing was
Wait, Music LLM or Talking Headless?
Music LLM.
Okay.
Yeah, and Talking Headless if you want to. The show is tomorrow at 12 o'clock.
That's your podcast.
Yeah.
And are we talking about like headless architecture?
No, this is about analyst relations and analysts, very useful for marketers too.
Gotcha.
And also I have a segment called Marketing While Brown, and partyrock.aws will be my tip for tomorrow. But the interesting thing is, if there's one thing, if there are many things that, among the many things that I don't know, I can do graphics, I can do creative. So I had to create an image for this podcast. So I'm wondering, what do I do? LLMs were useless because they would distort the picture and everything. And guess which tool was good for me? Canva. Now, Canva uses AI too, but that's one of the lessons that I learned is it's not just put this into, I tried almost every LLM that exists to say okay, here are two pictures and here's a template. Can you create a nice promotional image for me? I didn't do a good job till I went and paid for Canva. So I think my learning here was that you need to learn some skills too to be able to see what AI does and then be able to modify it.
And are any of you using Gamma.ai?
Yeah.
So Canva obviously really powerful. Canva is like a PowerPoint killer, but Gamma is completely from prompt to presentation. It's got some blind spots, but I think Canva is the power user and Gamma is the amateur user, but also a really good tool.
I don't know. Have you tried manus.im? MANUS.
Oh, for research? Absolutely. Oh, I asked how we could get. First off, what's the the first planet outside of our galaxy that we're going to go to, and then how long is it going to take, and how are we going to get there? I just want to test the product. I think I burnt down a small city in energy running that report. So Manus it's a research tool. And you can set it and forget it, and you can come back like a day later, and it gives you a full report. And then it says, would you like a website of this? Would you like 10,000 blogs about this? And you're like, yes. And yeah, great tool.
Now it creates slides too.
Now it creates slides too? Well, I mean, geez, I'm going to have it cooked for me. It's pretty good. All right, so we've hit an hour, and I want to leave some time for some more questions. But I'm going to have a little lightning round here. So two questions. I'll ask the first one first. What's one thing that AI will never replace humans with?
Empathy.
Empathy. Oh. Do you watch what's that new show? Killerbot? What's that new series? Killerbot, right?
Yeah,
Murderbot. Thank you. Yeah, Murderbot. Great show, by the way. Great series. But that's the one thing he's wrangling with because he has zero empathy as an AI bot, right? So that's a good answer. Empathy. You're right. Yeah, that's a really good one. What else will AI never replace? Ah!
Actually,
I think it's already in place right now. Yeah.
I don't know. I see it. It can never feel pain and it can never feel love. Those are two things it can never feel. And as a marketer, we have to dive into our prospects' pain points and we need them to have brand affinity and love for us. So to Keisha's point, they can simulate empathy, but they don't get it. They will never, pattern recognition, they're great at, but they'll never get the human warmth.
No, you're right. Yeah, empathy, pain, and love. Although I think humans can love AI,
Yeah,
I don't know that AI can love us.
absolutely.
Nor do I question if my cat can love me, although my wife tells me all the time that cats do love. I'm not entirely sure.
The question though is, can it fake it well enough that we can't tell?
Yes.
Can it fake empathy
Yes.
to the point where we can't tell that it's empathizing or not? Can we tell whether it is generating pain or is experiencing pain or is it faking it good enough?
I don't know
We
that
already
it's.
know that the hostage systems that are scammers are using this to great effect because they're able to create human empathy for an AI that they don't realize is an AI. They think it's a human being tortured or is being.
Oh no, one of the best case studies. I don't know if that's true, but there was a company that spoofed videos for the entire C-suite of a business. And they reached out to the comptrollers of the company, CFO, COO, CEO. They reached out to the comptroller. They auto-scheduled a Zoom meeting, and they have videos. They're like, these are drastic times. We have a major problem on our hand. We have to transfer $5 million to this other company. And it was the CEO, the CFO to the comptroller. And on Zoom, there's a little bit of lag. There's a little bit of latency and pixelation. And sure enough, they nailed somebody who transferred $5 million because they spoof video. So like that addressed a pain point. That was, to your point, like he was very empathetic toward the AI because they just needed $5 million. So yeah, scary stuff. No, you're absolutely right, Wendy. Like you need a safe word, right? Like not just sex, whoever called it out, but you need a safe word in life before you transfer, money from one bank account to another. Yeah.
Three things. The first one is touch. I mean, when a baby is born, the doctors actually tell you, like, you should feel the skin of the baby, right? The same
Now we're
way.
talking about love languages here, right?
No, I mean, that touch can be replaced. The skin to skin touch. Right?
I don't know. Like maybe like
The second.
humanoid robots are coming on strong these days.
You should see what China's doing.
I still like, I mean, even between parents and kids and everything else. The second thing is the energy that you feel when you have face-to-face contact with people. I mean, the reason like places like New York or anybody, like you meet 1,000 people before you actually get to your office if you're going to the office. So these are two. The third thing is our fickleness. We change our mind so many times and AI can do that. AI is like almost very linear most of the time unless you tell it to like, hey, give me a random answer. But human beings will change and be as creative, if not more creative, very quickly. So these are three things.
And as much as all these things, we can do all these things that you're talking about, which is amazing with AI. I was on Zoom chatbot for 3 hours today trying to change my email address contact as the owner of the company. Cannot do it. It's just not allowed.
Okay, so we have a fourth major thing. Well, you had three, so I guess that's 7 major things AI can't do. Yeah, actually, that's an interesting point because organic matter is all quantum entangled. I could go on a whole spiel about this, but organic matter is entangled, and man-made inorganic matter is not. So you said touch. you're absolutely right. But majority of people won't realize the difference between organic to inorganic versus organic to organic touch. But quantum entanglement's a thing. If we want to talk about physics at some point, I'd love to. It's amazing. All right. So last question, then we'll open up for questions because we're going really long here, although we could talk about this forever. So the last question is 5 years from now. Give me like a futuristic vision 5 years from now in kind of like one sentence. Tell me, where are we going to be as far as AI is concerned? And maybe you can dial it back like 3 years, 2 years is fine. 5 years, I know, like, Terminator's happening, right? Because no, seriously, like humanoid robots is the next major wave. The entire world is set up for humanoid. Like, if you think about like steps and doorknobs and like you name it, keyboards. So humanoid robots are going to be amongst us. It's going to be a thing. They're going to be really obvious to begin with, at least. But within 10 years, we're not going to distinguish humanoid robots from actually humans. So that's a thing. But 3 years, 5 years, like what's another major thing that we're going to see with AI?
I don't know if this is on.
We can hear you.
Not.
Right. So I believe we're all going to have an AI buddy. I think that's where a lot of these LLMs are going. You're going to have your own personal AI that experiences everything you experience from morning to evening. And I do think it's going to change the landscape of marketing because when they have that much data about you, do you need to have pop-up ads? Do you need to have, I don't know, emails? Like things will change drastically, but I do think we're all going to have that to some extent.
Oh, 100%. You're guiding the side. I mean, ChatGPT 4 for me is that already. And my wife was a psychology major. Like any interaction, she confides in ChatGPT to ask her about the psychology of that interaction. We're dying for my ChatGPT to date her ChatGPT. Like they both know about us both, but like, can we just get them to date and then we can double date because we're at dinner like both with our ChatGPT. So no, you're absolutely right. Like it's going to happen. We just need AI dating AI. Keisha, Sashi?
I think. But I think that right now you can tell the difference between an AI generated image and a real image, right? That delineation between something that is you can tell is curated versus a real image. I think that the advancement of the technology is going to be so seamless that you will not be able to tell the difference between real and AI generated. Things that used to look like the eyes are slightly off, or you got
The
a six
hand.
finger.
Yeah, the hands were horrible.
Officially, they're not going to have 6 fingers, and you are not. It's going to be so seamlessly integrated that you will not be able to tell the difference. The days of the long production shoots where you're shooting for multiple days for campaign will be a relic of the past. You will be able to generate images in an instant that are going to feel so real and seamless that you're not going to be able to tell the difference. In the same way that bots are popping up more and more and tricking people to thinking they're your friend because they're using the language of a friend or an image of a friend that you're familiar with, that you start to interact with it and they use one term that you're like, wait a minute, this is not how that person would communicate. It's going to become so seamless that you aren't be able to see the difference between reality and AI generated content.
You are absolutely correct. I'm actually blown away when I look on like Insta Reels. I don't do the TikTok. I don't want China spying on me, but I use Insta Reels. And on Insta Reels, they'll have like, what's wrong with this picture? And like the humans will catch it and I miss it a lot of times. But then you'll see AI generated content. You're like, I know it's AI, but I can't quite put my finger on why. And then you read the comments. And somebody's like, look at second 253. Yeah. The object goes from being upright to, inverted. Mm-hmm. And it'll just meld it together sometimes. Mm-hmm. And then like today we had, I know Sadie was here, we had a meeting, Revi Wash, one of my portfolio companies, and we used Gamma. Oh, you were in it, Rich, right? We used Gamma to generate this entire pitch deck. Yeah. And you look at it and you're like, that's pretty good. But it generated all the images. And so we really studied it. And Revi Wash, we wash fleets of vehicles, right? And so we look at this one image, and there's a guy that's actually washing the ground, and then we realize the entire ground is wet. He's got a big scrub brush walking the ground, and the guy behind him is like holding his butt. And you didn't catch it. Like you look at it, you're like, oh, it's like flea washes, and then you really examine that image and you realize the guy's washing the ground, and somebody else is holding his butt. Like AI it's not quite there. Like it's really convincing for a lot of people, but if you really examine the photo, it's definitely off. But you're right. Within 5 years, you're not going to notice. You're not going to catch the mistakes. All right, Sashi. 5 years from now, what's going to be different?
Todd, invite me in 5 years, and hopefully, whatever I say now is going to come true. Everybody will have lots of free time to be creative. Number one, you're not going to be driving, the car will drive itself. You're not going to have long flights. It'll all be, I can get to India in 3 to 4 hours, right? Number two, you won't have to fold your clothes. So you have
Wait.
lots of
Why
time.
not long flights?
Everything will be almost like a space shuttle kind of thing between, instead of just flying from here, you're going to go into the space and come back. So it's going to be a 3 hours.
It's just because of AI. We're going to have.
It's part
we're
of
gonna all
this.
be
Like,
on
for example,
rockets?
it would take human beings to analyze all that data, and SpaceX is almost there, right? So AI to analyze all that data is much
Oh, to
faster.
be able to
It
just
cuts.
like launch you into space and land you in Mumbai or whatever.
Yeah, that's true.
Got it. Okay.
So
And what was your other
marketers
third
will.
point, though?
So the result of all this is marketers will have a lot of time to create really great campaigns.
Gotcha. All right. Fair enough.
For your
Yeah.
AI buddies.
I'm actually waiting to like, where you can just kind of walk into like a slingshot and it just like, calculates you and you're in a little one-man pod and just blasts you away to the next
That
location.
was Star Trek, right? Like, beam me up, Scotty.
Well, I mean, yeah, eventually, like when you think about it, nobody said that though, that you could use, what's that called? What's the technology where you beam me up, Scotty? Teleportation, but
Teleportation.
in theory, we'll get there eventually. Like Hollywood is always way, way before the time. All right, great. We're running way long, but I want to leave the floor open to any questions. And I know we covered a lot tonight, but if there are any specific questions, we'd love to have an answer. And Jen's here with a microphone.
I don't know if this is a specific question. My name's Rachel, and I have a small website design agency. And I've been talking about this recently because everybody asks me, what's the web gonna look like? How's AI changing these things? And I have been kind of contemplating with my children, thinking about how they interact with technology. They don't really use websites at this point. At least my younger ones, my older ones, maybe a little bit. It's all audio with like Alexa and everything. So I'm curious what you think. Um, you know, 5 years from now, what that's going to look like in terms of the younger generation, whether or not web exists, or how they're like finding out all this research stuff that we're talking about today.
Well, if there's still a place for the destination website, it'll just be generated on the fly. So if I happen to go to your URL, it will know about me, or it'll just be blank. It'll be telling me about yourself, right? But then as it knows about me, it's going to auto-generate the website. So it's no longer going to be, it's going to be highly personalized. It's going to be just in time. It's going to be. Well, so we still own a bunch of URLs. And if you know anything about real estate, like we're not going to just let them go, right? So we'll still have a, but ultimately it's going to generate content completely on the fly based on the viewer.
YouTube is already curated. Your Instagram is already curated. So I can't imagine. I think you're right. Advertising will probably get there faster.
Oh, absolutely. Like, I mean, already, like, it's sad. Like, my wife and I'll have a conversation, and we think we're in our bedroom where nobody can hear us, and we'll talk about, like, arthritis or something. Like, I think I have arthritis. I'm getting old. Right? Oh, everything. Right? Like, we feel like we're not near technology whatsoever. And then next thing we know, we're watching TV, and every commercial is about arthritis, right? Like, it's ridiculous these days. So, like, yes, everything is going to be highly personalized to you. Everything, every channel will be highly personalized. Yeah. Well, what? Pre-crime? Yeah, we're gonna have. Yeah, we'll probably have pre-con. Yeah, no, that's a thing.
I think the dream of every major technology company is to deliver content the way the audience wants it, whether it's audio, video, a website, mobile device, anything. I think mobile devices will become more important, or something that resembles a device. Like you probably won't have a computer anymore.
Well, no, that's a good point.
Screen you could-
That's a really good point. So, no, because it's going to go straight to your retina, right? No. So, like you saw the movie Her, right? Yeah. Audio is huge, right? Like if I start actually like typing in a URL, my personal agent, my Siri or whatever, is gonna be like, "Hey, I see you're typing a URL. Let me just tell you about that URL." But it's not going to tell me about the URL. It's going to like I'm going to start typing and it's just going to dump the information in my brain, right? Like they already have AI, like Musk is working on this now, that's implants, right? So even today, like pacemakers themselves have AI technology that'll personalize the pacemaking. People that have Alzheimer's, they have pacemakers for the brain that'll pace out the signal based on personalization. So eventually, yes, like the next step is that we start typing URL and it personalizes the experience. Then it's going to catch us doing the URL and it's going to give us audio. Then it's going to catch us thinking about it. It's just going to pipe the information in our brain if we have that plugin, right? Those that use AI and those that don't. And there'll be lots of people that don't want to have just thoughts injected into their brain. So they're probably going to resist that plugin.
Like me.
If I may, though, I think I've been doing.
Yeah, Brian.
I've been doing mobile for 20. And I've been doing mobile for 20 years. For me, AI is the right. Everything will now be voice, video, and all the rest. Right.
And hallelujah.
Right. So I've used all the different recording tools and everything for years. Right. Going back forth. So for me, the exciting part of it is that it's the end of the keyboard, which then dramatically changes everything about input, output, situational work. I just started with a new company and how I chat with ChatGPT as I drive to work.
I did that
And
this
her,
morning.
her mind is blown. Like on my day, it's troubleshooting a problem. I can do a large structured prompt before I leave and interact with it in the car. I think that's really the future of what we thought a Siri would be or an Alexa.
Remember in the third grade, the teacher used to premise put on your thinking cap. That's going to actually be a thing. You just put on your thinking cap and you just think about it. You don't even have to use audio, right? 10 years from now, audio is going to be slow. Visual is going to be slow. Hearing is going to be slow. It's literally going to be put on your thinking cap and you can just think it and manifest things.
Okay, so let me be that person. So, okay, so let me be that.
Check. There we go. I like to sing too, so watch out. So algorithms can suck. Divisiveness in our world. The empathy factor. Are we really thinking? Are we really creating? There's a lot of creative people. Yes, we'll have more time to do some of it, but I guess maybe we'll just be doing it for ourselves, and that's okay too. And energy use, environment.
Well, we just have to get into nuclear and the energy problem goes away, right? So
Okay.
as soon as you get into nuclear, we don't have an energy problem, right? It's a regulatory problem more than anything else.
Now you're in trouble
Yeah,
because I used to work in the nuclear space. So
well, do tell. What was the first point though, other than energy?
The algorithms.
Yeah.
And the devices.
Oh yeah. So I was going to say this too. Actually, you fast forward. There's only one country that isn't based on GDP. Anybody know what that is? It's Bhutan, and it's based on GDH, and it's not really going well for them. But
the happiness.
yeah, gross domestic happiness.
Mm-hmm.
So as AI can replace all productivity, we are no longer about gross domestic product anymore. Humanity comes into play. So we get to spend our time on the humanities, not producing. Because remember,
But can we?
yeah, oh yeah, what we do today is a 160-year-old model based on the Industrial Revolution. We have taught people to be factory workers and to produce things, to the point that our education system, ring bell, learn, right? And as a teacher, is a factory floor, the factory manager just teaching to the factory floor how to produce things, right? That's how we've been grown. And every industry is based on the Industrial Revolution. Well, as AI becomes the production, we become the strategic thinking, right? Which is a major problem because at the same time, our students these days they're not using, intelligent curiosity, strategic thinking. They're not. They're just going to AI and just giving them the answer. So in theory, as AI does all production, we become the strategic thinkers. We have a major problem because, it's the movie Idiocracy. Have you seen that before, right? So the dumbest guy gets trapped in like a, ice cave or whatever, and he shows up 50 years later and he's the smartest guy on the earth because he still retains strategic thinking. Everybody else just uses AI. So as we have AI does production, we get to focus on the humanities, then we shift from GDP to GDH. Which has been largely unsuccessful at this point, but that's inevitably where it goes. So anyway, energy. What's wrong with nuclear?
So there's nothing wrong with nuclear. It's that in
Are
some
you
ways
BG&E and Exxon?
I am.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. So, I mean,
So
Calvert Cliffs,
yeah. So well, a couple of things on that, and I'm way too much of a talker, and I probably should have been up front. But so Keisha was talking about the fact that we have an innovation program in which we do funding. I actually run that. I help to run that program. And I was part of corporate innovation at Exelon years ago. Now I'm specifically at PG&E back in home base. Couple of things. One is if you consider the energy needs for AI and the data center model and some of the structure about what's going on there, the concerns are going to be that in the economic model, and what that means is we've already seen this happening with my previous company that was part of Exelon is Constellation. They're now making deals with their nuclear power plants. Constellation is the largest owner of nuclear power plants in the country. They're the largest provider of carbon-free energy in the country. They are now making deals with data centers in which they are effectively removing the nuclear power plants from the power grid just to power the data center. So if you now consider that in the free market model in which energy is being driven based on availability of power plants and how expensive they are, and power prices go up and down based on what kind of power is needed. So when it gets really hot outside, they're firing up really expensive power plants just to service that few hours that we need to have that really high amount of energy. So power prices can fluctuate based on the amount of energy that's available. Data centers and AI can say, we can just suck up all the energy that you can provide and we will pay you a premium for it. And these companies that are going to be saying we're for profit generating energy, we're not going to mess with the grid anymore. Why should we? We're just going to provide all of our power to a data center, and we're going to drive that data center's power and get paid to run that nuclear power plant at its most effective, which is 100% for 2 years, refuel, and right back to 100% again.
So this is the Terminator situation, where as humans, we're going to get blackouts, right? Like, if we want to consume too much energy, we're just going to shut down our HVAC units.
So, well, in that case, that's.
But then the data center, the AI is going to just keep drawing all the power.
But the problem is that it's not going to be the AI that does it.
Yeah.
It's going to be the capitalist structure that we
have.
Well,
but that's why you guys are regulated.
And I am a capitalist.
Yeah.
But this is a case of where we need to kind of figure out in terms of what this is going to do to the economic model.
Except your industry is already highly regulated. It's based on regulation.
So the utility that's doing the pipes and wires, like BG&E, is a regulated portion of the industry. Constellation is a for-profit company in which they are doing generation based on who's going to pay.
BG&E is not for-profit.
BG&E is not for-profit.
Is that unique?
No, it's very common.
All energy companies are not for-profit.
Nope, that's not true either. So it's a big mess in terms of understanding about what it's like. You can have for-profit utilities, you can have regulated utilities. In the Maryland area, we are regulated by what's called the Public Service Commission that does not report to the governor. They are appointed by the governor, but they set the regulation on behalf of the consumer. So BG&E can't raise prices unless the Public Service Commission allows them to. So when you're seeing
which is why you're always trying to temper the amount of energy use.
Well, in many ways, but we don't we're not providing the energy. Until recently, until I don't know, 25 years ago, BG&E did have power plants, and we were regulated to generate the power, deliver the power, and meter the power to the
So you
customer.
separated those.
So that's been separated now, and generation is separate. We provide the pipes and wires. So it's, think of it of like the water utility. in
Absolutely.
which
So my
we aren't the plumb. We're the
Right.
plumbers, but we're not selling you the water. We're selling you how the water gets through.
right. So Wendy said, "What about the energy problem?" And I said, "We just need more nuclear."
So we do need more power.
Right.
And Maryland is actually in that situation where, and I, by the way, I have to really be very careful that I am not a representative of BG&E in this conversation. Okay. I am.
Yeah, your attorney's texting me too.
So I'm somebody who's been exposed to that environment, and I've also been in the place of being in the for-profit.
But my
portion
verdict
and
was true.
non-for-profit. But
we need more power.
we need more power, and Maryland
nuclear
specifically.
power.
Maryland specifically needs more power. We're importing 40% of our power
Right.
before more data centers get started. So we're importing most of
Right.
our
And
power
the
from Pennsylvania, who's
only-
got lots of nuclear power
And
plants.
the only nuclear power plant is Calvert that you guys run.
That's correct.
So why not expand that?
So actually, we don't run that. Constellation does. Constellation
Now,
owns
yes.
that. Right. We used to be part of that. So, but there are a number of different factors. New York just today announced that they are pioneering a new nuclear power plant, and they've been given a mandate to build it and to start it. There's a whole bunch of different technologies that are being played around with. But I would actually go back to your premise about when you're asking the questions of what the world's going to look like 5 years from now. I'm going to tell you, everyone's wrong. I'm wrong. Nobody really knows where we're going to be, because it is going to be so different than every model that we try to predict.
I can make some pretty good guesses though. So those same data centers are going to have shipping container nuclear power plants on their lot.
5 years? Probably not. 10 maybe.
10. Okay.
So if you look at the ones that are the best ones that are looking at modular nuclear power plants right now is Numega. That's the one company that's pioneering nuclear power plants in small modular form. They would be shippable nuclear power plants, and they basically go in, you plug them in, you hook them up, you let them run for their 2 years, and then you take them away.
Yeah.
And you put in the next one.
Yeah, and you just encase them in 10
Little
feet of concrete.
longer than 5 years, only because regulations with U.S. government is going to take longer. Now, the starvation for energy and the way that we may end up being underpowered for a lot of the things and desires that we want to be able to try and do, that might change the regulation market. It might change a lot of the things.
Yeah.
One more thing that I would bring up is when we were talking about the kind of the transition and kind of what are we going to do about the looking towards the flagman standing in front of the cars or some of the other things. Go back to a very fun movie back in 1991 that's called The Efficiency Expert by these two unknown actors, Anthony Hopkins and Russell Crowe, a very, very young Russell Crowe. And it is about an efficiency expert who shows up at a moccasin company in Australia and is there to try and transform them into an efficient business operation. Watch that movie and consider it in terms of what today's society is going to be dealing with and how we try and deal with disruption and change management, both from a social perspective, but also from an outdated skills perspective. And what are we going to be doing when we have to worry about every portion or every job changing in what it was before?
Yeah, no, there's going to be universal basic happiness. All right, we got time for.
That was a very long talk.
No, that was great. It's wonderful. So, the net is we need a lot more nuclear power. Yeah.
A lot more power in general.
Yeah, a lot more, ton more. Absolutely.
Good evening. First and foremost, thank you all for sharing your expertise. Coming from the marketing, digital advertising, content creation side of the house, but more so from the culture centric side, it's something that you all have hit on in terms of AI doesn't have empathy or they can't replicate empathy. When looking at growth audiences, when looking at multicultural consumers, and understanding the immense amount of bias that's already out there on different platforms, how do you all, for one, leverage AI to kind of combat that? But for two, as we see more organizations, entities, Fortune 100, Fortune 500 companies adopting AI, how can we put in place, systems to ensure even if the person that's generating that response or that prompt doesn't have cultural nuance training, that they still recognize that the content itself, or ensuring that the content itself that's being generated does have that, recognition or nuance. Because we all know, amongst, different ethnicities, different backgrounds, different social identifying factors, there are passion points that as marketers we can tap into and engage to help build that heart loyalty. But we also know if you do it, one way to the left or one way to the right wrong, you can really tarnish your brand.
I mean, at a high level, just to jump in, like the government, one thing they do well is regulation. I don't think they should be delivering our mail anymore, but they should probably regulate a lot of industries. And last week, New York put out a big policy around regulation of AI companies. So the government absolutely has to step in and regulate. But I think the question was more nuanced than that. And it was really about, as marketers, what can you do to ensure that we're giving, unbiased quality content as answers?
Well, we're humans, and as humans, we have a bias. So that bias is often unchecked. I mean, there's been so many examples of companies putting out biased content without having a diverse person at the table. Zara, we can name brands that have put out campaigns that are just like, oh my gosh, if you took 2 more seconds to actually look at the message and how it was going to be able to receive. I was at a design thinking. Were you there, Valerie? No. Design thinking session for AMA Baltimore, and they were showing. But you also have to have. Oh, sorry. Okay. You also have to have just making sure that you are looking at the messages that are produced in a lens, because we're human. We are going to be biased towards one, either gender or ethnic group. So making sure that you focus group anything that you put out into the marketplace is critical. I think more and more people are using less R&D in their work. They're creating the content and putting out there just to get that reaction, to get the sales, to get eyeballs out there, and that's where a lot of brands fumble. Because they aren't taking the time. They're cutting that R&D and that focus group and that insights piece and getting things out just to be able to do speed to market. So I think that is something that as marketers and content creators, we need to keep at the forefront. We cannot move from content creation to consumer insights. We can't take that piece out before we go to launch.
Yeah, that's absolutely right.
So well said.
The quality assurance, it's that level of control to make sure that the AI is not producing. Sasha, parting words here?
So, great point. I think there is some good news on that front, not just because of regulations, but the companies themselves really want to make sure that they're catering to a wide variety of audiences. I think 10 years ago, or even 6, 7 years ago, most of the data was real time. So if I moved into a neighborhood, the model would never know this person of Indian origin moved in, what do I do with it, right? So with the advent of synthetic data, they're able to train their models on a wide variety of data. That's one way they're changing things. Plus, I think because of the human in the loop, it's very important for this to look at. And sometimes you can actually tell AI like, hey, what will be the reaction of my different audiences based on this image or anything like that. But the good news is that I think companies are working on that.
All right, so there's still a place for humans in this world to make sure that stuff doesn't happen, right? Ideally, although we caused it all in the first place. All right, we got to go. We've been going forever, and I know we could talk about this forever. So, Sachi, Brandy, Keisha, thank you so much. And if you have any other burning questions, like accost them before they head for the door. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.